I absolutely love Codie Sanchez. She seems like an absolute business beast and a great person. We have some mutual friends, and everything I've heard about her, she's absolutely incredible, and following her on social media is a treat because her content is incredible. However, but you knew there was one of those coming, I would like to react to a video she just put out about how buying small businesses is easier and better than buying real estate. Codie, you could not be more wrong about this. Respectfully, I am going to go over the video right now, then give my reaction as to why buying real estate is so much easier, better, more profitable, more scalable, and everything else, every other adjective you could put in there, than buying small businesses. All right, here's the video.
Real estate is an awful way for you to actually make money. Option one, you can go buy a single family home for $400,000, the average price in the US, and then you rent it out to somebody. Well, the average rent nets you, profit-wise, about $167 a month. So you're taking a $400,000 risk for like a couple $100 a month. Then you take the average small business, you could buy same way you could for buying a small piece of real estate. So $400,000 business, you put some money down and get the rest from the SBA or seller financing, and the average small business makes 10 to 15% per year. You're still cash flowing tens of thousands of dollars from a business instead of a real estate.
I'm going to try to be as fair as possible here. I'm going to talk about some general statistics and the general landscape of small businesses in the US. Then I'm going to talk about real estate and the real estate investing industry, give you some general concepts there. And then I'm going to break down the simple investment requirements that make investments good or bad. Things like leverage, tax savings, cash flow, and then I'm going to talk about which one's better for those specific pieces. And then by the end of this, you're going to realize how much better real estate is of an investment than small businesses. However, it doesn't mean you can't do both. I do both, so I do have experience in both, which I think makes this a little bit unique. I have small businesses and I have real estate. I love them both, but if I had to pick one, I would go with real estate every single day of the week. All right, so there are about 35 million small businesses in the US, which is a pretty good number. It makes up a majority of the businesses. However, over 81% of those small businesses are single employee businesses, meaning the owner is the only employee. Now, I guess they could have 1099 contractors, but in general, it's just them being a solopreneur, which isn't a bad thing. However, it goes to show you that there's not that many opportunities. Of course, there are some out there. However, you juxtapose that with real estate, there's over 150 million houses in the United States of America. Houses are a requirement to live. You need to live in a house to shelter yourself from storms and weather. You don't have to have a small business. So one reason I like real estate is much more abundant than small businesses. There are a lot more real estate deals out there than small businesses, and I'd rather go after the thing that people need than the thing that people want. They need real estate, they may want whatever product or service comes from that small business. Another pretty big stat that I don't think I cannot mention about small businesses are over half of them fail within the first year. Now, to be fair, you're probably buying a small business that's been in business for more than a year and hasn't failed. However, 65% of small businesses fail by the 10-year mark. So unless you're buying a business that's been around 10 years, which is definitely possible, but we're shrinking our gap even more, or we're shrinking the available small business that you can buy even more if you're only buying small businesses over 10 years. And those stats just go to show the failure rate of small businesses is much, much less than real estate. I remember I used to work for this company called Fabic Caterpillar. It sold Caterpillar construction equipment, and Fabic, that company that I worked for, had been around 100 years. And it made it to the fourth or maybe fifth generation. And I remember when I was there was this big celebration, and they were saying that like 1% of small businesses make it 100 years. Well, unless there's a tornado or an earthquake, the house is probably going to make it to 100 years. You're probably going from 1% of small businesses, or 1% of small businesses making it 100 years, to maybe 99% of houses making it to 100 years. So the failure rate is much higher when it comes to owning a small business than owning real estate. Before I get into the benefits of investments in general, then give the lean to real estate or small businesses, I want to talk about the liquidity of real estate. Real estate is insanely liquid. Everybody has to live in a house or wants to live in a house, as I mentioned earlier. People move, they downsize, they upsize. There is just a ton of reason for people to buy real estate, whether you're talking on the retail side to a homeowner or on the investment side. There are millions and millions of people that want to buy real estate. Therefore, it's much more liquid. You can get in and out of a real estate deal very, very quickly. Small businesses, kind of like apartment complexes almost, are a lot harder to sell because there's not that many people looking to buy. And I guess maybe that's an advantage. If you're looking to buy, there aren't as many people looking, although it is a smaller number. As I mentioned earlier, it is definitely a disadvantage when you're looking to sell. You want multiple people looking to buy your business, so the price goes up. You want multiple people looking to buy your house or your apartment complex even, so the price goes up. So the fact that real estate, especially single family real estate, is so liquid gives it a huge leg up in my opinion, not even mentioning doing cash out refinances on real estate. We did a $2 million cash out refinance last year on one of my real estate portfolios and paid $0 in taxes. A few appraisers went out, we talked with the funding company, and 30 days later we had a $2 million tax-free check in our bank account. That is pretty tough to do with small businesses, although not impossible. All right, let's talk about what makes a good investment, and then I'm actually going to give you an example deal of what it looks like, what return you can get in just 1 year buying real estate using none of your own money. All right, the first thing that makes up a good investment, in my opinion, is leverage. Leverage is very, very rare in the investment game. You can't leverage your way to owning crypto or leverage your way to owning stocks. If you want to buy $100,000 in stocks or $100,000 in crypto, you're going to need $100,000 in cash. However, real estate and small businesses, for this example, can be leveraged. You can do creative financing, you can put a little bit of money down and get a loan, and having leverage is something that allows you to multiply and grow quicker using debt or just creative financing to acquire that real estate asset or that small business. So we're going to give each of them a check here. I'm going to say that owning a small business and owning real estate both allows you to use the power of leverage, unlike most investments. Number 2, cash flow. This one, again, is going to be a tie. Real estate cash flows if you buy right and manage properly, and small businesses should cash flow if you buy right and manage properly. Now, her example of $167 a month buying a single family rental is not 100% accurate. Nobody is going out, or very few people are going out and buying houses at retail price. We buy houses at discounts, therefore we cash flow more. Just like buying a good deal on a small business, if you pay market price, you're not going to cash flow as much. Your expenses, your money to finance is going to be higher, so you're not going to cash flow as much. So I'm not going to hurt her too much on the fact that single family houses don't cash flow a ton if you buy them at market value, but if you buy them at a discount and do it the right way, you can cash flow more than $167 a month. And maybe small businesses cash flow a little bit more, but I'm not going to guarantee that either because there's so much that goes into owning small businesses, like managing employees. There's so much that goes into small businesses like market turns, which don't affect real estate near as much. Having your product be outsourced or having somebody come in and undercut your business or technology replace your small business is a huge risk that can cut into cash flow. You're not going to have that risk with real estate. So I'm going to call these two a draw. So each gets a check mark on cash flow. All right, now is where things get a little bit interesting. Appreciation or value growth. Small businesses can grow in value. However, real estate doubles in value every 15 years without fail. Go back and look at the numbers and look at the charts. If you don't believe me, real estate at least doubles in value, if not triples in value every 15 years going back to the 1940s and 1950s. I've done the research. In the past 80 years, there's just 2 or 3 15-year gaps where real estate did not double in value. And even in those years, it went up like 90 and 95%. So if you bought a house in 1955, by 1970, it doubled in value at least. If you bought a house in 1972, by 1987, it doubled in value at least. If you bought a house in 1992, by 2007, it doubled in value at least. So getting the appreciation, getting the growth of real estate is basically guaranteed, especially if you pay a property management company to take care of the property for you, or you have pride in ownership and don't let things deteriorate. Real estate doubles in value every 15 years because it is tied to inflation and tied to cost of replacement. On the other hand, a small business can way more than double in value in a 15-year period, or like I just told you earlier, a vast majority of small businesses won't even be around in 15 years because people that manage them don't know what they were doing. And like I said earlier, technology, AI, and a lot of other factors can replace those small businesses. So if you're talking guaranteed growth in assets, I would rather own real estate than small businesses. So this one is like not even fighting fair, and this is tax benefits. Real estate has so many tax benefits, it's not even funny. I do pretty well for myself on the real estate income side as well as on the small business income side. Yet the only way I'm able to write off my small business income is through my real estate. Most wealthy people that own small businesses and real estate, one of the main reasons they own real estate is to write off their income from the small businesses. Small businesses do have a few tax benefits, but not like real estate. Real estate, you have depreciation, straight line depreciation. You're able to divide your house by 27 and a half years and write off that amount every single year from your taxes. You also have things like 1031 tax exchange, where you can sell a house or an apartment and you can take 100% of that profit and pay $0 in taxes to take that over in a certain period of time, 180 days, and buy another real estate deal with it. We're not even talking about all the write-offs and other crazy benefits and accelerated depreciation and cost seg depreciation that comes along with owning real estate. The IRS, the government, the world wants you to own real estate in the United States. It's been said that if the U.S. real estate market sneezes, the entire world economy catches a cold. Real estate runs the world economy, and I want to own something and have ownership in something that is that impactful, and real estate happens to be that. And tax benefits are a huge part of that. So we're gonna give multiple pluses for real estate and maybe an even sign for small businesses. All right, another one where I don't feel like we're fighting fair here is scalability. You can buy 100 houses or a 100-unit apartment complex or just buy a ton of houses because of the ease of entrance and the ease of exit. You're able to scale much easier owning real estate than owning small businesses. Now, I will try to play fair here. Scaling one business to a big numbers is probably easier than scaling one house to big numbers. However, let's play the numbers game. Let's buy 10 or 15 houses and let's take some of the risk out. Those 10 or 15 houses or 20-unit apartment complex can scale pretty quickly, but if one or two of the houses is vacant or something goes wrong, you're pretty diversified. With small businesses, it's hard to get to that 10 to 15 small businesses. Very, very, very few people do that. And if you do that, it's going to take you a lot of time. Realistically, you own one or two small businesses. If one of those fails or is going south, it's going to affect the other one. Again, get to that 10 to 15 properties mark, and one or two having issues is not going to completely sink you. It's much more scalable and much, much safer to own real estate than small businesses. Another big pro to real estate over small business is financing options. Yes, there are things like SBA where you can get business loans on small businesses. However, it is quite the process to get those. And if you follow somebody like Codie, I'm sure she can make it sound easier and she can guide you through it better than I can. But I do know getting financing for residential properties is insanely easy. Whether you're talking creative financing, you're talking sub-2, you're talking using a private lender or a hard money lender, there's DSCR lenders, there's small local banks out there, there's regional banks that will finance portfolios, there's things like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac for bigger properties that are government backed that allow you to borrow money to own those assets. So you can use financing to own small businesses, but you don't get the plethora of options and the ease of use in financing real estate. Now, I'm sure there are great small business owners that operate businesses with efficiency, and there are people that don't know what they're doing and operate real estate and make it harder than it is. However, in general, operating single-family rentals or apartment complexes can be easily outsourced to a property management company. Outsourcing running a small business can be very, very difficult. I own a few of them, and I've looked at purchasing a few of them. They have to come with a key employee that's going to manage that business, especially if it's not in a vertical or something that you're familiar with. You need the owner or somebody that's a key operator in that business to stay on forever or at least a few years to continue to have the business operate at a pace where it cash flows for you and is a good investment. investment. While that's not impossible, that's way harder and way rarer than just calling a property management company or managing the single families or apartment complexes yourself. Getting into these assets is a big deal, but what's even bigger is making sure they operate efficiently after the fact. That is why so many small businesses fail right away, and eventually even down the line, a lot of small businesses fail because operations is much harder, but also, as I mentioned earlier, technology and things can replace a small business. Technology is never going to replace a house that you live in, that you raise a family, that you have a dog in the backyard, that you eat and sleep at. You may even travel and do the digital nomad thing where people are living in different cities a few different times a year. Guess what? They are still renting houses or apartments that they have to live in. And the biggest feather, well, maybe not the biggest feather, but a huge feather in my cap for owning real estate is the fact that it's such a good time to do it because of supply and demand. There are so few houses out there. If you're able to buy houses for the next 10 years, you're going to own an asset that a ton of people want that very few people have. Small businesses, on the other hand, may be the exact opposite. Technology is going to be replacing a lot of these businesses with AI. Now, there's obviously businesses that are going to hang around and push through and use AI, but those are going to be the newer businesses that have a very, very high chance of failing. Getting an established business that's not going to be affected by AI or technology is kind of naive, in my opinion. So navigating those waters over the next 5 to 10 years, I think is going to be tricky. And the exact opposite is happening with real estate. There's not enough apartment complexes out there to keep up with the population growth. We are way behind. That's why with all the craziness with tariffs and interest rates and everything that's gone on over the past few years, real estate has remained pretty strong because the supply and demand is so low. I don't think you can overlook that over the next 5 to 10 years. All right, let me give you a quick example of why real estate is so powerful. So let's say you're putting $50,000 into a single family rental property. She mentioned putting some money into a small business loan earlier. Let's say you put 50 grand into a single family house that's worth 250 grand because you're buying below that $400,000 average house price. Well, you're putting in $50,000. Let's say you're making a couple $100 a month cash flow, $250 a month cash flow. Not a ton, so you just made $3,000 cash flow on your $50,000 investment. Plus, you get about $8,000 in depreciation, meaning you can write off $8,000 in depreciation like that for owning that single family rental. You also get $10,000 in appreciation. That $250,000 property is going to go up a minimum of 4% this year. I know real estate goes up and down, but not first-time home buyer prices and not those rental type prices. Those pretty steadily go up. That $2 million house might go down to $1.8 million, then back up, but those lower price houses have a steady increase. So you're going to get a minimum of 4% or $10,000 in property value growth in 1 year. Plus you get ancillary write-offs, like you're able to write off your mileage on your car a little bit if you're looking at houses, or maybe your cell phone bill, or even a home office. You're able to write things off, and let's just say simple $5,000 write-off there. So that means you put in $50,000 and you add all those numbers up, 3,000, 8,000, 10,000, and 5,000, you get a 57% ROI in year one because there are other things that come along with owning real estate than just cash flow. If cash flow is the only metric when looking at investments, I would maybe lean Codie's way, especially because she's such a badass. However, that's not the only thing when it comes to investing. If you take into all the other benefits that come along with owning, buying, and managing real estate versus owning, buying, and managing small businesses, real estate wins every single time. You just have to know what to do. Now, with all this being said, not every investment is good for every person. You may want to go down the Codie route and buy some small businesses. She's really pushing hard in this Main Street revival and getting some of these Main Street businesses that probably won't be replaced by technology anytime soon. So again, love me some Codie. She's incredible. Go check out all her stuff. She's way more articulate than me. She's way easier on the eyes than me. So if you're looking for somebody new to follow, definitely follow her. However, just know that overall, in my opinion, real estate is a much better, safer, and more scalable investment than buying small businesses. But let me know what you think in the comments. Like this video, subscribe if you have not. I talk all things business and real estate on this channel. So make sure to follow me if you want to learn how normal people get ahead financially by buying real estate. Because I've gone from the middle lower class to owning over $50 million worth of real estate, all using other people's money with the methods that I talk about on this channel for free. See you on the next one. Love you, Codie.